Hi, Embrace Zindegi. I'm Shumi with Dr. Partha Bose, and today we are here for episode 12 on social wellness. You would be surprised how important, how imperative this topic is. Social wellness, you might be physically fit, but are you socially well? What is your social quotient? Now, here, Dr. Partha Bose is going to tell us all about social wellness.
Friends, you have been, listening our podcast, one take-home message we always try to give that we are talking about holistic harmony. We are talking about life wellness. We are talking about a life full circle. As we go into that age group, when you are not very old at the same time, your children stay away, you feel lonely. There's an epidemic which is going on called loneliness syndrome. And let me tell you, in UK, they have appointed a minister called loneliness minister. There's an epidemic which is spreading. Social wellness is the most important thing if you want to achieve in total wellness. You may have all kinds of wellness in your life. You may have physical wellness, emotional wellness, mental wellness, intellectual career, but if you are not socially connected. Now, what exactly is socially connected?
Yes.
It's a meaningful, positive relationship with your communities and a kind of harmony. That means it is a kind of resonance between your inner emotion and outward emotion. That means you have to develop a kind of a kind of synergy with your immediate environment, and that's why you need to adapt to certain new situation, because the society is very heterogeneous. So social wellness needs a lot of adaptability and flexibility.
Yes,
to get into that.
absolutely. Friends, I can share with you, coming from a joint family and then into Navy, suddenly you realize that you are suffering from empty nest syndrome. Kids have gone abroad, your house, there's just two people in the house. Who are you going to talk to? If something happens to you, who's going to come by and support you? So that is social wellness, where you're going to communicate with your immediate neighbors, your friends, your new families that you're going to adopt. And throughout this, one thing, you've got to be positive, you've got to be honest.
Absolutely. Meaningful, positive relationships. And that is only possible when you have a healthy, empathetic communications, when you have a purpose, and that is only possible when you develop certain skill sets. And before we get into the skill sets, let me tell you certain medical statistics. In most of the meta-analysis, it has been shown that people, those who are lonely, they have 50% chance of getting into dementia, number one.
Yes, absolutely.
Number two, 25% of getting into all kinds of medical chronic diseases, and almost 30% into coronary artery disease and brain strokes. So it's an alarming situation. Even the best of the world is spending a lot of money to prevent this kind of situations, and that's why there are a lot of community support and skilling which is going on.
Absolutely. And I think it is just like, walking into your neighbor's house and to find out how they are instead of keeping your doors closed. We all are busy. We are doing 9-to-5 jobs. But in spite of that, spare a little time for your friends and for your neighbors. So throughout this process that you do, you got to be sincere to the relationship. There is no competition. Let them have what they have. But you got to be sincere, you got to be honest in your relationship.
Absolutely, is an honesty, and the most important, it's a trust, and trust is it's a both-way connect, and you have to develop a kind of empathy. You have to be a little selfless. You have to reach out more. You don't think about yourself, your selfish objectives. You have to share your things, a feeling of sharing, and that is only possible when you develop certain neuroplasticity. You have to develop new skill sets in the brain. You have to generate new neural wires so that it's a new environment. You have to live with them. So there are a lot of things you have to do it. You have to develop certain community participations. You have to learn a lot of new things so that you are accepted in the society. And also at the same time, you have to develop certain local community social support.
Absolutely. So that is very important.
That is very important. That is the only way.
The activities that you do in community, for instance, even attending a satsang or, a dinner together or even hobby classes, these are the areas where you can develop your social circle, and it also gives you a kind of self-satisfaction, emotional.
Absolutely. And what happens? What happens when you go to a certain age, because already you have worked in a certain kind of maybe a feudal system or a fixed system, you develop a kind of arrogance and fixity, and that is what is one need to change. So you have to be flexible, you have to develop new neural wires, new kind of acceptance, And you have to empathize with yourself. You have to say that I have to belong to this environment, because there may be some physical limitation, there may be some social limitation. So how you connect yourself?
Which means essentially to listen. You got to give them a patient hearing. Don't be judgmental. Don't deny completely what is being said. So you got to be empathetic.
Empathetic, and you be a patient listener. And the best part of it, you have to develop a certain amount of resilience and certain amount of kind of the what you call enhancement, so that you feel much more balanced.
Yes.
And the most important thing which we talk about, Shumi, in this social wellness syndrome is what you call not only the communication skill, it is a conflict resolution management. Sometimes there may be conflict in the neighbors.
Yes.
So how you resolve this conflict management with rational thinking is not that you have to be every time you have to be argumentative. The way you put your things, like being more assertive and less argumentative, that conflict
absolutely.
management has to be understood.
So you may disagree, but be respectful. That is
absolutely the mutual respect, the empathy, feeling into somebody's shoes, and also be a and this is only possible when there are certain ways you can. What you have to do, you have to understand that person who is staying next door, or maybe a community. You have to understand them. You have to create some special interest so that you can attract them. So this special skill sets are only possible when you have certain similarity, because what happens, social wellness is a kind of harmony,
and it is also safety net.
It is a safety net. It is a safety net. It is something you always, like, for example, if you have a medical emergency. Now what happened in COVID times? COVID times, who helped you? The local grocery shops, the local chemist shops, the local people, the local gurdwara,
your neighbors.
Even if your children staying abroad, what? They were of no use. So you have to understand, you have to be much more rational and wise. That local support system, you have to develop a kind of a compassionate, empathetic network, and that is only possible when you share your skill sets. Just be on the giving side, involve people, reach out, and small things which you can do it. Do some value additions. Like, for example, you may have skill set for some profession. You help them to disseminate knowledge, exchange ideas, and learn new techniques. So it's very important that social wellness is a new kind of neural wellness, is a new kind of neural chemical process. You become, it's something like an optimum balance in your mental health.
Tell us how it's going to help us medically.
The most important thing is that, what happens when you are going through a process, like for example, little medical emergency, when you're feeling lonely, when you're missing your children, when you're feeling boredom. So what happens? Your sympathetic system, what you call the autonomic nerve, they go haywire. You suddenly become hyperactive. You develop hypochondriac symptoms. You get butterflies. You feel low. You feel start loneliness. And what happens? You feel that you need some validation. So what happens? You will start doing something. So what is happening? When you are lonely, when you are not connected, substance abuse is increasing.
Absolutely.
So there's a huge amount of substance abuse. You see the alcoholism and smoking is rampant.
Smoke.
And the most important thing in my clinical practice, which I see, huge amount of antidepressants
drugs being used.
Anti-anxiety drugs. Either they're thinking too much about the future, or they're going back too much into their past. So there's a huge consumption of mental pills, sedatives and antidepressants and anti-anxieties. And the problem with these pills are they stay in your blood for a long period of time. They make you sluggish, they make you groggy, they can be suicidal, and many times you can be accidental also. So we are all going to a vicious cycle. So instead of going into a self-criticism and all those things, going to substance abuse and taking drugs, talk. Let's talk.
And
talking is very important.
Laugh is very important.
So very important. So if you really want to develop a social wellness, you have to have a sense of humor. You have to talk to people. You have to talk on different subjects.
And you got to be like me. You got to be romantic.
Yes, that is most important. And you develop a kind of aura around you, so that you feel that you're there. And if you really want to talk something, hitting into the system, you be critical about yourself. Don't point on people. Let's not be judgmental. So you have to be a little smarter.
And what I said about romanticism in nature, romanticism with your neighbors, with your friends and families, in the sense that just take things lightly, have a good laugh, have a good sense of humor and your wits.
And also good sense of humor, and not to lose your temper, arrogance, and
Read.
also read more. People
Listen to
become
music.
short tempered, so you have to, and this is only possible when you follow certain rules.
Yeah.
It's not like that. It has been found that people who has been regularly exercising,
Right.
people who go
Yeah.
for a nature walk,
Yes.
people who listen to music,
Music.
people who read books,
do
people who have a
hobby.
humor hobby,
Yeah.
they are much more acceptable in social wellness syndrome. So you have to, raise your bar
Yeah.
to develop this, because it's very important. You can have a community walk, you can have a
Yeah.
community picnic.
Yeah.
You have to do certain physical, because unless and until you do some physical exercise in the morning, you will not release, endorphin. If you
Yeah.
don't, endorphin gives you a feel good feeling. So as I always say, these hormones are the 4 hormones that are going to help you. The endorphins, the dopamine, the serotonin, and oxytocin and melatonin. And very important, when you're not active community-wise,
Yeah.
when you're not physically active, when you're not participatory, you are into sleep disorder.
Yes, absolutely.
So you will be
Yes,
insomniac.
Sleeping
So
for
you're
too
sleeping,
long.
you will be sleeping
Yeah.
too long or too short, and you're
Yeah.
into antidepressants and sleeping pills.
Right.
Your sleep goes.
Right.
So your sleep is bad.
Yeah.
And then you have physical problems which you
Yeah.
develop it.
Yeah.
The drug all put together into a vicious cycle. So
Mm.
friends, try to understand, social wellness is not a pastime. It's a serious profession which you have to develop. You have to
is.
nurture yourself. You have to reach out to people. You have to raise your bar, and you have to learn this special skill set.
Follow the steps. Follow the steps, as he said. Join hobby classes. Be little witty. Listen to music. Do gardening. Gardening, you are expert.
Absolutely, gardening. I always I say, for me, the most important thing in social wellness is a kind of catharsis.
Yeah.
Now, when you play a instrument, or maybe you do a gardening, or when you're hitting a ball, or when you do some exercises, or when you do some high intensity, you are kinetizing your system. Now,
Right.
you imagine,
Right.
our brain is something like a mountain. That's why you see the serious mountains are volcanic. So it is something here. When you're continuously thinking, not sharing,
And
not doing
stress.
anything,
Avoid
stressed out,
stress.
sitting in one
Yeah.
corner, and what happens? Suddenly, you become volcanic. So it's, instead of becoming volcanic, try to kinetize. It is something
Yeah.
like, you have seen those small pebbles.
Yeah.
These are the representation of the big rocks. So what happens? You have to learn to kinetize your potential energy.
Right.
So do some
Right.
kinetizing exercise,
Right.
music,
Music.
singing,
Go for a walk.
laughing,
Yeah.
sharing,
Yeah.
cooking.
Yeah.
And I tell you one very important thing which I tell ladies, this baking is an amazing way of
cooking.
social
Cooking
wellness,
for me
because
is
I
is
think
a
cooking is
therapy.
okay. Cooking may be enjoyable, but I think baking is therapeutic.
absolutely therapeutic.
So
Yes.
it's very therapeutic.
even the aura, the fragrance, everything put
Everything.
together. It's
So it gives you a kind
wholesome.
of, it improves your visual memory,
Yeah.
it improves your limbic system, it improves your, hippocampal system, everything. Your brain feels happy. And the most important thing which I tell people, look, in social wellness, you don't have to say that I have to be best. No, even you don't know how to dance, dance it.
Yes,
If you don't know if your
exactly.
music, sing a song.
You don't
So
need to be
So you have to
perfect.
be unapologetically uninhibited.
Absolutely, and that is your uniqueness. And people are going to reach out to you for
So you
your
should be
uniqueness.
you should be uninhibited, and you should be yourself. You connect yourself with you.
Yeah.
You don't have to create, a kind of, you don't have to wear a special suit for your, phenotypes. You have to be natural, ethnic, very grounded, and the most important thing, people who are humble, people who are grounded,
absolutely.
they are the people who are socially accepted.
Keep your ego away.
That's why I say, walk as if you're kissing the earth.
Yes.
Be humble, be grounded, and that is a mantra of social
Dance
wellness.
like nobody's watching you.
So friends, stay connected, make community groups, and enjoy social wellness, and that is the only way to reach the total wellness.
Reach out to your community and reach
and do
out
well.
to us, and please read the notes that we have given
Give
you.
you.
If you have any questions, do get back to us. Embrace Zindegi. See you again. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Take care.